call of the Hogs can be heard all the way to San Francisco.
You're listening to Pod at the Palace with Curtis Wilkerson on Inside Arkansas.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome back to the show, the Pod at the Palace. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Got some stuff to talk about today. I see the Boogie Flan Florida Brinks truck rumor finally went nationally viral on Monday. Interesting. Had several people tagging me in that to weigh in. I got to be honest with you. I have nothing else to add to that, my friends. I really don't. Said a few times now, since Friday or whenever it was that started circulating around. Boogie's not getting $7 million from anyone to come back and play college basketball, much less a team who won't even pay to keep its own players off of a national title run. So, as it turns out, every national source on Twitter started echoing that on Monday afternoon. Not surprised that happened. So no, I really don't have much of a reaction to it, if I'm being honest. And also, if you noticed, everybody started, quote tweeting that one account that was throwing it out there all at once. This is absolutely insane. This is ludicrous. This is outrageous. Do you think it's a coincidence by chance? Like, why do you think that everyone from a national standpoint started doing it at the same time? I'll tell you why. It's because folks on both sides of the conversation, Boogie's in, Florida's in, probably sent those blanket messages out to media folks to put an end to the nonsense, which is what that was. When Jeff Goodman, the king of inflating NIL numbers, is calling BS on something like that, it's outrageous, right? And that's the only reason I spoke out on it initially, is because I kept getting asked about it, and it's like, okay, Boogie, Florida, that's one thing. 7 million, like, where are we? Come on now, that's crazy talk. And I'm sure someone on that radio show over there that put that out, like, I have no doubt that someone over there heard that from somebody and is just relaying what they were told. Like, I don't think it wasn't like made up. I mean, there's no reason to do that. But just not accurate, right? And that's okay. Nobody bats 1,000, whatever. But said this too, and I'm sure that I probably need to reiterate, if Boogie Flan comes back to college instead of going to the draft, I mean, he could wind up at Florida. He could. But he ain't getting half the amount of money that's being thrown around out there if he does. That's nonsense. And if you have any common sense at all, that just by hearing it. But also, due diligence and just kind of checking around a couple spots will help you find out really quick that's kind of wild. Nobody would even offer that for starters. Why would you? You know what I mean? Like, if the highest reported number out there is 4 million or, whatever for Toppin, why the hell would you offer 5 or 7 or to Boogie Flan? No disrespect. Right. But he's a hooper, but he's not college Anthony Davis. Like, let's relax a little bit on that one. And then also, no agent would be dumb enough to ask for that. Like, everything went, I mean, it was berserk, right? The reaction to PJ Haggerty, who is, 2 years in his college career, and he's an All-American guard who was asking for 4. And everybody's like, no, you lost your mind, dude. And he's not getting even that. So even if you had, high hopes for what you were trying to get, if you do come back to college, you're not going to be asking for anything outrageous and that much higher than, what PJ was looking for. So, let's relax a little bit. Right. Anyway, good morning. Hello, everyone. What else happened in the world? Kentucky got their 5th 7-footer, marking the 23rd offseason edition by Mark Pope. That happened in the SEC. Meanwhile, the wait in Fayetteville, it intensifies, and I've been getting a lot of questions coming my way, a lot of what ifs. And I understand that. I think about that every day. In fact, that's what we're getting ready to do. What if Carter Knox? What if Jameer Watkins? What if this happens? What if that happens? Yeah. Right. It's, I guess let's quickly run through all the ways that this could wind up shaking out. We're talking about this roster getting finalized. We're going to play a little best case, worst case, I think, with the final roster today and see how we're feeling about the options there. That's the plan. That's what we're going to try to do. But first, shout out to today's sponsors, Bryant Technologies. They're your home for all your network and security needs. You know that they're dedicated to delivering that high-quality network infrastructure and those security camera solutions. They take pride in that exceptional workmanship and commitment to keeping your business operations seamlessly connected and secure. Whether it's structural cabling, security camera installation, digital signage, or TV mounting, Bryant Technologies have you covered. Whether you're in the state of Arkansas or any of the bordering states, they can come out and get you handled. Have Bryant Technologies help you out with all your network and security needs. Give them a call. The number 870-883-0330. Check out their website. It's right there at the top, www.bryantstechnologies.com. Okay. Let's see here. This time a month from now, this will all be over with. And then we'll really be able to dive into, projections and the fun stuff, right? Right now, we keep operating in hypotheticals, and sometimes we're super confident. Sometimes we get a little bit nervous. Like, what's going to happen? How's this going to shake out? It's really funny because if you're an Arkansas fan, or maybe I'm crazy, but this is the way I look at it, you're so close, yet so far away. Because it feels like the final outcome could have us feeling this very wide range of emotions. And it's all based on like one or two decisions that you're kind of waiting on. You know what I mean? And so that's why I wanted to roll through just kind of best case, worst case, and then maybe more realistic case, which is the middle ground, right in between, and see what the finished product might wind up looking like for Arkansas. And I mean, like, what would best case scenario be within, a level of reason? Or like, I could say that and people would be like, oh, they just go get Jameer Watkins and RJ Lewis and Darian Williams. And there you go. But realistically, best outcome that you could possibly think of with the combine coming up, portal season wrapping up. For me, you could go two ways, maybe. Carter Knox back and Adu Thero back. Done. Or like Carter Knox back and one of the big fit, Jameer Watkins. Done. If that's how this went down, you knocked it out of the park, John Calipari. Home run. Some would argue grand slam. I would nitpick because that's what I do. But that's what I'm talking about, man. Final Four stuff. And then at that point, you could at least your 10th and 11th men are more talented and capable than what you had last year. And you could look at your front nine there and make a pretty compelling argument that you're better. Thero in particular, I mean, you would have more returning minutes than any power conference team in the country outside of Purdue. That's good, right? Retention is a big part of this. And it's also unheard of, that kind of stuff with Cal. And really, since the Mike Anderson era at Arkansas, because it's not like Muss was running it back with a bunch of returners ever. Really, Devo had a brand new set of teammates every year he was at Arkansas, So that would be awesome. You'd be so far ahead of the game, ahead of the curve, comparatively speaking to everybody else. I mean, hell, if you had those 5 returners, what would that look like? DJ, Carter, Billy, Adu, and Trevin. I mean, you could run out a starting 5 of returners who were all big-time contributors, for a Sweet 16 team, plus the centers that you added, plus your 2 McDonald's All-Americans. I mean, that would be, this is pie in the sky thinking here, but, come on now. And then a guy like Watkins, on the other hand, if you wind up with somebody like him instead, that adds a lot of offensive firepower, a different type, as well as defensive versatility. I mean, he's a switchable guy out there. Got some size to him. You'd be stacked. To me, like if you wrapped up this roster, you're thinking about the guys that you have, and you throw Knox back in the mix for sure, and you go get a Jameer Watkins, that looks a lot like some of John Calipari's vintage rosters at Kentucky. I mean, I think that's the territory that you're starting to get to. Unfortunately, these seem like 2 of the more unlikely outcomes, right? Especially Adu. And we've talked a lot about Adu. I know that there's been some rumblings out there that he could come back. And listen, Yeah, he could. Like that option is available to him. He hasn't, burned his eligibility or anything like that with his agencies or, like if he decided, hey, it'd be better for me to come back to school, he could do that and he would have to go to Arkansas because he's not in the transfer portal. We talked about this for sure. Highly unlikely that's going to happen though. So, it's going to take something like, that knee injury lingering to where he's impacted or limited or can't participate in the combine. Haven't heard anything about that. In fact, I need to just, check in, see what we can see about that. Something like that, impacting the stock or a really poor combine showing for him to even entertain college coming back. I mean, that's the consensus on what I've received. Now, would Arkansas welcome him back? Like, is that door open to him? Duh. Yeah, of course it is. 100%. But his mind's on the NBA draft. So, if he gets a guarantee, even second round, top 45, if he's getting a guaranteed deal, he's taking it, folks. So we're going to have to really watch closely, how does he test? Is that explosiveness there? Is he able to participate in the scrimmages? Who's he working out with, from an NBA franchise standpoint? So we'll monitor it, but that would be one hell of a turn of events if it worked out for Arkansas. My thought process hasn't really changed on that. And then, guys like Watkins, the thing there is they're going to have, him or any of these other guys like him who opt to, pull out of the draft and come back to college. You're going to have North Carolina and Florida and Ole Miss and Kansas State, other more desperate teams than you who are ready to engage in a high stakes bidding war late that Arkansas has been reluctant to participate in the entire offseason. They haven't done it. They haven't. They didn't go in a bidding war for Morez Johnson. They didn't do it for Keyshawn Hall. And they haven't even gotten involved for some of the, heavy hitter type of guys who you thought would, be reasonable additions. Now they had their own plan that they have in place there, and they went out and addressed the center spot. And Malik Ewan and Nick Pringle didn't come for free. But let me ask you this, like, who was really the competition there? For Pringle, was there ever any? Like, legitimately? And then for Malik Ewan, you did a great job of getting out in front of that early. And you might have had to up it a little bit when Bruce Pearl came knocking, trying to make a push. And all right, you don't need to be taking that trip to Starkville, man. So there was some there for sure. But they haven't been going crazy, like maybe you thought they would, just because we know what kind of money John Tyson has. So you're thinking, well, if they need to spend, they need to overpay to get a guy, they'll do that. But, John Calipari continues to prove that's not really his style. So if he feels really, really comfortable about what he has, especially if you have, this is all assuming Knox is back, then I don't know that he's really going to go crazy in a bidding war for another huge piece. I don't know that he'll do that because we haven't seen it just yet. Like, it's not an impossibility. I'm not saying he won't, but I also say I don't feel like it's unreasonable to have something like this as an expectation either. And I've been bullish from the beginning since we started talking about this stuff, that I view this from a lens of my expectation is Arkansas to have a Final Four roster on paper. Like, they should be that good. There ain't no, they're a piece away, or well, they're kind of light there. Oh, they need more of this. No. There's no excuse for them not have everything that they need. That's me. You guys can feel however you want to feel, but that's where I'm at with it, given the coach and the resources and everything else. But I don't think it's unreasonable to have Knox and another dude, whether that's a dude or Watkins or RJ Lewis or, whoever else. Because, think about it for a minute. We would simply have Arkansas with 9 studs once again to rely on, just like last year, which we all agreed was not enough. John Calipari agreed that it wasn't enough. But you could at least at that point, if you got back to 9, you could really sell me easily on, but like Isaiah Sealy, Kareem Rattel as your 10th and 11th guys, way better options, deeper roster, mission accomplished. Okay, fine. Sure. Yeah, I'm with you. But let's be honest here for a second. If I would have told you the day the season ended that Arkansas would lose Adu, Thero, that they would lose Boogie Flan to the portal, or pro, whatever. Like we expected that to happen. That Big Z would be out of here as well. That you'd have your retention, but that all you would do in the offseason was add a center and a backup center. If I told you that, and then I told you that you would have one fewer guaranteed rotation body going into next season than you did this past one, after everything that we just went through, you would have either called me insane or you just started rioting in the streets. So, and it doesn't mean I'm not excited about the guys that they have there potentially, but that just, it feels a little bit crazy to me. So I don't think it's unreasonable. So this remains my expectation for the finish. There's another way though that I could be super pleased and pumped about the team. We'll get to that in a minute, but those are best case, right? Starts with getting Carter back and then another big time addition. And you got 9 bona fide studs. I think that's as good as it gets for Arkansas. That's all you need. Flip side is worst case, right? So if best case for me starts with Carter Knox coming back, worst case for me starts with Carter Knox staying in the draft. Okay. And absolute worst case then would be, Carter stays in the draft and you whiff on the other big fish, or some of those other guys stay in the draft, or, the bidding war gets crazy, whatever. And then you kind of have your 7 at that point. And then you're scrambling to add a role player or two, on the wing, or a 4-man, maybe an international player, a mid-major guy, like who knows? But that would be tough. And again, we're not predicting this. We're taking the extremes, then we're going to meet in the middle. That would be brutal. It would be a really tough look in hindsight when they chose not to pursue pretty much anyone outside of Ewan and Pringle once they got those two. That would be brutal. So yeah, for me, any potential scenario for this team that doesn't involve Carter Knox, it's bordering disaster for me personally. So if like in fairness, and now we'll get into the middle ground, right? We talked about the best of the best, and then this is how this could actually not be a good thing. The middle ground is usually where you wind up. So say, Knox balled out at the combine and stayed in the draft, but you wound up getting Jameer Watkins or somebody like that. It's, that's about as good of a consolation prize as you can get. But, like the Jameer Watkins of the world was supposed to be the ace in the hole, the crown jewel, the final piece to the puzzle. You know what I mean? But at least you wouldn't be left empty-handed looking crazy like Will Smith, in the empty house, just looking around like, where is everybody? That'd be DJ Wagner. But at least you would be able to replace what you project to be a key cog with another guy that could theoretically do a pretty good job of filling that role. So that could be some middle ground that you could find if that were to be the case. What about the other types of middle ground? Because I think the further along we get here, as you just kind of watch things play out, the more I feel like this is maybe where we're going to wind up living. Whether we, agree with the thought process or not, doesn't really matter. But there is a world, a couple different things here. There is a world where Carter Knox returns and Arkansas is done. Right, they get their guy back, and it's like, well, okay, that's a wrap. We'll put a bow on it. You would have 10 players then, including Sealy and Rattel. Jaden would make 11. Like they'll fill out the back end of the roster anyway, probably in ways that they did, this past season. Me, I'm just being honest here. Personally, I would have a hard time justifying this one. I'd be over the moon to have Carter back. Like that's the must. But if they just stop there, I would be a little bit underwhelmed. Okay. They would have aced the retention test. You'd have a really, really solid group of 8, but we just got to be fair here. They would be vulnerable. They would be vulnerable. You'd be very, very good. The potential would be there to be great. And and we're not talking about oversaturating the roster here, you would be leaving yourselves more vulnerable potentially than you were even last year. Kind of negligent to the depth and the shooting concerns that plagued you at times throughout the course of the season. I think the vulnerable, the better way to put it, if they just got Carter back and then they were done with the roster, the word that comes to mind for me is settling. Settling. Not in a bad spot. No, not by any means. It'd be a bona fide top 20 team, top 15 probably on paper. But why settle when you don't have to? I just don't feel like Arkansas should be in the business of having to settle with John Calipari calling the shots, backed by John Tyson's checkbook. The last year that you can be before they try to put some regulations on this. So it would be an interesting spot to be in. If this is the path that they chose, I would be underwhelmed with the end product because of some things that they didn't do, but very, very optimistic about what they have and excited, if that makes sense. You know, expectations would be high. Of course they would. But there would admittedly there'd be a level of fade there on my part. Because you just be, that makes me uncomfortable to think that, man, you're one missed evaluation. Like it just doesn't translate for one of these freshmen, or Ewan can't hack it in the SEC. I'm not saying he can, I'm just throwing it out there. Or like one injury away from putting yourselves in a tough spot when you just didn't have to do it. And I don't, as it's been told to me, Arkansas is, and I've shared this with you, and I've operated under this assumption that they are not done, even assuming Carter returns. Like it's kind of been a Knox and one type of situation. And, will that be a bona fide stud? Will it be, more of a depth piece, like a traditional ninth man type or whatever? I don't know. But I would prefer to live in that world, right? So if we're believing what we're hearing and understanding that, there's a very real possibility that you get Carter back and you're just not able to close on Jameer Watkins or whoever of that ilk. The ideal middle ground for me is that they then plug their holes with some experience, right? Fortify yourself, man. It's like an insurance policy. Give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. And what would be the holes there? If you think about it, backup 4, like Trevin's kind of the only one that you have right there. I would prefer this. I think if you're not going to get an impact wing to be like a 4 or 5, just so you're not leaving yourselves thin again in the paint. Like you got some flexibility, some more options. They added somebody like that. I'd feel a lot better about things. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. And yeah, you could play Carter there at the 4. And that's okay. My thought process with that, because people have asked me about that, like, why are you so resistant to Carter Knox playing the 4? He did it, last year. He did. I didn't think he looked particularly good doing it against Colin Murray Boyles and Deron Williams. My point is, it's matchup dependent. And you want it to be based on matchups, not out of necessity. Because Trevin's not going to be able to play 40 minutes a game for you at the 4. You know what I mean? So my thought process there is twofold with Carter. Yes, you can play him at the 4, but is he really going to ditch the NBA to come back to school and have to defend SEC power forwards every night? The answer is no. And like, I do think you need an option. Like you need someone more suited to the position, and then give yourself the flexibility for Knox in a small ball lineup when you need it. Not by necessity, but because you can do it. So they would need to address that. Shooting, obviously, for the love of God. I mean, add someone who has made a 3-pointer in college. I don't think that's asking too much, And then I still think you need a veteran ball handler. Maybe you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone there. The reason I say that, because I get it. I know I've been the guy who was like, look, if DJ Wagner comes back, it's gonna be really hard for them to add into the backcourt. Yeah, with a major piece. but not with an insurance policy. As I look at this roster, I see 3 guards, ball handlers, and DJ is the only one with college experience. That makes me a little bit, a little bit antsy. And in this particular scenario, you do not have an Adu Thero or an Ellie Davis. So you probably need, at that point, Billy Richmond on the wing more with Carter than you did this past year. Plus, I just don't think Billy's strength, like, is he really playing to his strengths if you're putting him on the ball? It didn't look like it last year. I mean, he could develop and everything like that, but maybe a mid-major guy or an international combo guard who could stretch the floor a little bit. If we're just talking about, you're not able to add that home run piece, can you hit a couple doubles to fill things out? Let me throw a couple hypotheticals at you and then we'll get out of here. Because the other options are straightforward. It's like, okay, Knox is back and then you add player A or B. Done. Knox is not back, so you replace him here. Or Knox is not back and you don't replace him at all, whatever. But if we're talking about getting Knox back, and then it's like, all right, but so now you have your 8 guys that you feel really good about, but let's plug a couple gaps here. Let's not be terrified of the depth chart type of situation. So let's say you got your top 8, and that would be DJ Wagner, Darius Acuff, Malik Thomas, Carter Knox, Billy Richmond, Trevin Brazile, Nick Pringle, Malik Ewan. Yeah, 8. So if you're not going to be able to get a, Jameer or whoever, is there a better fit in the portal than Eric Musselman's boy, Rashawn Agee? I mean, he's a dude Thero sized, maybe a little bit heavier. I mean, he's listed at 6'8", 228. That's a big boy. Averaged 9.4 points, 4.5 boards in 20 minutes per game. He shot 39% from 3 on 2 attempts per game. That's that Ansley Almanor type of addition I was talking about earlier in the offseason. If Trevin's going to average 25, a game for you or whatever at the 4, and maybe given your roster makeup, he's playing just a handful of minutes a night at the 5 even. You give the rest of those minutes to a guy like Agee at the 4, brings a little more toughness blended with some shooting. I think that would be a great ad. It really would make a ton of sense. Now, the issue with him particularly is he's probably going to have to sue the NCAA for another year. Unfortunately, he would probably win because he does have a season of eligibility left, but it's complicated. Like he's played 3 countable NCAA seasons. He redshirted his first year at New Mexico State, and then he only played 1 game the next year due to injury. You get a medical redshirt for that, but that was also the free COVID year anyway. But then the issue is he left and he played a JUCO year, which technically no longer counts against your seasons of eligibility, but his clock was already started, if that makes sense. So Agee has a season of eligibility left, technically, but his clock is up. You got 5 years to play for, and he just finished his 6th year. So he would have to win a ruling to get a 7th year. Is the situation that he's looking at there. It's complicated. It's a mess, but that's where he's at. So he has the season of eligibility. They just have to allow him to extend his clock to be able to play it. Is he working on that? Maybe. I hope so. You know what I mean? Someone else who could fill that kind of role this late in the game. I mean, there's some good options out there. Like Baba Miller, I've talked about him a ton. From Florida Atlantic and Florida State. He would be incredible as a pickup there. 6'11", 215, can knock down threes. He's a lot like Trevin, not super versatile defender. But he's going to be a really, really hot commodity with the pickings pretty slim in there, in fairness. Sean Stewart, we brought him up before, former Burger Boy, averaged 6 and 6 at Ohio State, started his career at Duke, hit the portal last year. Cal was on him. Never really heavily pursued, but they were kicking the tires there. He's still out there and available. He can help your shooting. But if you need another big body who can rebound and defend, there you go. Cade Tyson is, I know people are like, dude, what are you talking about? That is a play that I would make if I'm Arkansas. I would. Wouldn't cost you a dime, really. A guy who just played a limited role at North Carolina and was a good teammate, so he gets it. But he's a major bounce back candidate with the change of scenery kind of guy. 6'7", 215, can play the wing, can play the 4, was an absolute sniper 2 years ago at Belmont and just never caught on with the heels. But why not? Why not? I mean, the dude's still out there in May. I just take a flyer on a guy like that. So maybe somebody like that, or, an international player who would be new to the college game. But, most of these guys are older, more developed. They've played professionally. They understand the game. They know how to be coached. At that combo guard spot, if you wanted to do that, and that's why it seems like it might be a little bit more unlikely. The name that really jumps out right away is Duke Miles. I mean, he'd be perfect. Was at Oklahoma last season, but have you guys been following this dude? It's been nuts. Committed to Virginia, decommit. Committed to Texas A&M, decommit the other day when they got Rylan Griffin. So maybe he's just not someone who wants to be a platoon piece. Maybe he's looking for guarantees there. I'm not sure. But he was a 43% shooter from 3, defended, handled the ball for the Sooners. That would be a good one. Rakeese Passmore really, really intrigues me. Highly recruited freshman that was at Kansas this year. Didn't get much tick for the Jayhawks, but there's a lot going on in that backcourt. But super, super talented player. That would interest me a lot. But I'm not going to lie, though. It's really thin, even in terms of rotation pieces in the portal at this point, because everybody's kind of picked through that market. So, a few names there, but the more I look, the more I feel like we might, maybe it would be a Carter and an international piece. I become more and more intrigued at the potential of Arkansas landing an international prospect with every player that gets plucked out of the portal on a daily basis. Cause there's a ton of guys left in the portal, but in terms of, if you're really looking for dudes to come in and be your ninth man and, kind of be in your rotation, somebody that you can count on to give you just a decent amount of minutes on a nightly basis, it's kind of slim pickings in there. It's getting a little bit thin. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they wind up doing here. But if they pull Carter back and then, short up that thing, let's say they just added one more. We don't want to get too greedy here after that. And you got yourself a, backup, like a stretch 4. I could live with that. I could see the vision with that and work with it. And maybe we'll just wind up getting best case scenario that we talked about at the top here. And we have nothing at all to critique or talk ourselves into. Worst case, I just don't see happening. I cannot, I'm being honest. Like, I cannot see a world where Arkansas loses Knox to the draft and they don't make a splash. That would be wild to me. I mean, they would be super motivated to. They would obviously have plenty of NIL money suddenly at their disposal to be able to do it. I would imagine at that point, whether Cal is really the gambling man, the bidding war man or not, they would almost have to. So I would imagine they would strike. But good grief, if they didn't, that would be tough. We're not going to think about that too much. But anyway, thanks for letting me ramble and kind of think this stuff through in my head. It's that time of year. That's where we're at. We just got a few days before we have something tangible to speak on when the combine gets started. I do think we're going to do the live streams of the scrimmages, assuming everybody's playing out there. But I think people would enjoy that. We could watch it. We just turn ourselves into draft analysts, right? Critique Boogie and Adu and Carter and Watkins and all those guys. Make fun of the Kentucky guys that are in there. It could be a good time. Just be on the lookout for that. But gonna get out of here. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for tapping in as always. Make sure you get subscribed where you need to get subscribed. We'll catch you bright and early in the morning on Wednesday. Y'all have a good one.